Right, easing our way through the day, this is U105. I want to speak to a man called John Taylor. John, good morning.
Hi there, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much for coming on the programme. You run a very interesting initiative, and it is for people who are coping with addiction. You are an addiction therapist. You're the founder of Beyond Addiction, these retreats that are run in various places, which people do pay for. John, tell us your backstory, why and how you became an addiction therapist.
Well, my backstory is a bit complex and lengthy, but I will give it to you as briefly as I can. You may well tell that I'm from here originally. I'm from Belfast originally. I just moved back recently in March to set these up in Newry. My backstory is that, there's a lot of history, I guess, in addiction in my own family. My mother was an alcoholic. When I was quite young, she left, I guess, abandoned us. We were put into a home in Belfast, Nazareth Lodge. I don't know if it even exists these days. So yeah, that was quite traumatic, but I guess fast forward a bit, when I was around 11, the troubles were pretty much at their height. Some of my family members have been directly affected by the troubles. For example, my grandfather was in a bomb explosion. One of my cousins was killed. My uncle was killed. So once all that was kind of directly hitting the family, my father moved me and my two brothers initially to London. I stayed in London a few years. Didn't like it there, missed Northern Ireland, so I decided to go back and live with my grandparents. So having lived in London, I kind of acquired an English accent. So when I got back to Belfast, I was then bullied for being so-called English. When I was in England, I was bullied because I was from Northern Ireland and it was the height of the troubles. So if you think about the abandonment issues, then the trauma of being bullied, then growing up in the trouble. So I was the only one here with my grandparents. So my two brothers and sisters stayed in England. So I was kind of totally detached from my family in many ways. My mother and father lived in England. My mother, she kind of died as an alcoholic. So witnessing that kind of behavior, it was always in my mind, I'm never going to be an addict. I'm never going to be a drinker. Having said that, I wasn't, but I ended up having my own problems with prescription drugs. So before that all happened, I hadn't realized that I had a problem, but my partner kept saying to me, I think you have a problem with prescription drugs. I was in denial for many years. That relationship broke down. That was quite traumatic. I then ended up in rehab myself. I realized when I was in rehab, not only did I have a prescription drug issue, I also had a sex addiction issue, which I wasn't even aware of. So I went to the Priory in North London. I had 4 weeks treatment. I then went into a 12-step program. I worked on myself for quite a few years, got into recovery in big time. I kind of wasn't really, I guess for many years, actually believing that I was an addict, because I think there's a lot of shame attached to being an addict, especially if you're a sex addict or, prescription drugs are still a drug.
Yeah, just on that issue, because maybe if you're holding your phone up to your ear, you're breaking up just slightly on me, but just the old traditional way of holding the phone is an advantage to us. But just John, you mentioned sex addiction twice there, but you said that you weren't aware that you were addicted to sex. How do you know if you're a sex addict?
Well, I guess anything related to being an addict is if it's compulsive, you're preoccupied with the thinking of it and it has negative consequences. And basically, I was having relationships outside of the relationship I was in, and it was purely just for sex. I wasn't having emotional relationships with people. I found it quite difficult to have emotional connections with people. until I went into rehab myself. I wasn't aware that I was almost anorexic in terms of emotions. I didn't really feel things because I was numbing myself with those activities, with the prescription drugs, with the sex addiction.
But is that addiction? Could some people not be involved in sex at that level of having sex with a variety of people and just enjoying themselves? Is that an addiction?
Do you know what? That's exactly the same question that many people ask. I guess there are people who can kind of have relationships and have sex and keep it under control. But if you're preoccupied by it and you kind of almost disregard everything else in your life to have sex with someone, and it would always be with random people. It wouldn't be with people I know. So I always wanted that attachment. And then it's compulsive. It's, you're preoccupied with it. You sacrifice other things in order to do it. And it has a lot of negative consequences. For example, as I said, I was in a 20-year relationship and it broke down because of that.
So it manifests itself in the same way as a gambling addiction or an alcohol addiction or indeed any of the other prevalent addictions. And you suffered via that, and you suffered via the prescription drugs addiction. Was it the 12 Steps program that rescued you from that?
Yes, it was. But I mean, when I was in rehab, of course, they do an assessment first, that you go through all your family history, family of origin. You go through your kind of what you do on a daily basis, your work life, your personal life. And then, of course, that came to light. Because a bit like what you just described, I thought, well, I'm just having a good time. But actually, I wasn't really having a good time. There was a lot of fallout emotionally around it because there was a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. But that was my way of coping because I was adamant I was never going to be an alcoholic because of my mother. So it's like anyone in addiction. We all have our own ways of coping. That was my way of coping. I guess, I mean, for example, my two brothers, they cope by drinking. They were basically alcoholics. So, but for some reason in my mind, I was never going to be that.
So you had different addictions, and now you are an addiction therapist. You help people with addiction. It's a business that you run, Beyond Addiction Retreats. If people buy into a Beyond Addiction Retreat, what do you do for them?
Well, it's not just me. I mean, there's quite a lot of us. There are quite a few clinicians, and my idea is that it's not just about nasal gazing and kind of listening to lectures. It's really about looking more inward, and there's a holistic side to these retreats as well. So there's a psychoeducational side to it, and there's what I would call an inner healing using holistic methods. So, for example, meditation, yoga, grounding work, breathing work, somatic work where we hold pain in the body, where we're not breathing correctly. Living in a state of hypervigilance, being anxious all the time. So it's about self-regulation in terms of your nervous system. So soothing, finding ways to kind of relax, identifying what's causing that. There's a lot of emotional suppression and expression needed as well. So, I mean, there's a lot in terms of the holistic side of it. Even a simple thing like having a massage, and that's self-care. People with addiction, oftentimes, it may be related to just not having the money to do it, but it's also related to not being able to think about caring for themselves, like having a massage, having a facial, having some holistic treatments like Reiki, for example, energy healing, these types of things that people that you wouldn't necessarily get in a regular type of rehab setting. So the retreats are more about, let's look at relapse prevention. Let's look at why you think you're an addict. What is it you're trying to numb? Why are you using drugs and alcohol? Because relapse is so prevalent, even after rehab, even during 12-step programs. So we look at triggers. We look at what is it that is going to perhaps help you prevent relapse. Does that answer your question?
It does. It paints a picture of what people would be experiencing if the next set of these are at Drummond Town Retreat and Conference Centre, which is in the outskirts of Newry, just as you go in from between Loughbrickland and Newry. And there is a cost with this. It costs £750 if you book it. I think if you book it up to today, or £1,500 otherwise. So there is a financial commitment from people, but that might be small money compared to what you would save if you could break your addiction.
Absolutely, and I mean, not sort of forgetting that this is a 4-day retreat, which includes all of these treatments and the accommodation, your food, etc.
So you're 4 days. Are you there 4 nights? 4 days and 4 nights?
3 nights.
3 nights, yeah.
On Friday.
But it's an overnight event, and how many practitioners would be on the ground with the people who actually sign up to it? Is it just yourself, or are other people working alongside you that you mentioned?
Oh no, there are other practitioners as well. So there'll be up to six of us running the whole retreat for the weekend.
Okay. Well, finally, if people do want to find out more about it, it's their own choice, of course. We're talking to you, John, simply because of the initiative that you've undertaken. But if people do want to make a judgment and they want to find you online, how do they do that?
Well, I guess the easiest place to look might be to Facebook, so it'd be Beyond Addiction Retreats, or to our website, which is beyondaddictionretreats.org.
Okay, Beyond Addiction Retreats, or beyondaddictionretreats.org. It might be the key. For your problem, and it may be something you wish to consider. John, really good speaking to you. I'm so pleased you were able to correct the problems you had in your own life, and a very challenging life. It's very interesting, really interesting story. Thanks for coming on the programme. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. That's John Taylor, if you want to look him up, and it's Beyond Addiction. And if that's the journey you're on, I wish you the very, very best of luck.
The U105 phone in with Frank Mitchell, sponsored